Welcome back, Web3 developers, to this Forge College Explainer. If you managed to survive our previous lesson on collecting data from Solana applications without your brain turning to complete mush, well, congratulations. You've officially earned your stripes. Today, we are looking at something that is absolutely fundamental for the creator economy on-chain. As part of our NFTs and decentralized identity track, specifically diving into advanced ERC-721 development, we are tackling implementing EIP-2981 for royalty management. Our core engineering goal today, building a universal royalty adapter for our smart contracts.
Let's just jump right into today's schematics. We'll start with the universal adapter, then move into designing the blueprint, after that access control security, wiring the interface, and finally testing the checkpoints. We're basically taking your custom math and turning it into a total plug-and-play standard.
All right, Section 1, the Universal Royalty Adapter. Think about it like this. You wouldn't travel across Europe without packing a universal plug adapter, right? EIP-2981 is exactly that, but for your smart contracts. Your custom internal math might be fantastic, it's highly accurate, it's brilliant, but to external marketplaces, it's just isolated, unreadable gibberish. It's completely useless to them. But when you wrap it in the EIP-2981 interface, it translates that messy internal logic into a super clean, standardized tuple. It acts as this sleek translator, serving your royalty math up on a silver platter for the rest of the world to actually understand.
So what actually is EIP-2981? At its core, it's just a standardized contract interface. What it does is allow any marketplace out there, whether we're talking about OpenSea, Blur, or some totally custom platform you built, to query your contract and ask two very simple questions. Who gets paid and how much? It gives you a highly predictable external method called royalty info that returns the canonical receiver address and the exact royalty amount for literally any NFT sale. Now, to make this math work efficiently on-chain, we rely on basis points, or BPS. A basis point is simply 1/100th of 1%. You're basically calculating parts per 10,000. And why do we do this? Well, if you've spent more than 5 minutes writing smart contracts, you already know how much Solidity absolutely hates decimals and floating point math. It just doesn't work. Using basis points gives us beautiful, integer-friendly percentage calculations. So 500 basis points, that's exactly 5%. It's an old concept straight out of traditional finance, brought right onto the blockchain.
Moving right along to Section 2, Designing the Storage Blueprint.
Before we write a single line of execution logic, we have to figure out where this data actually lives. Just like in physical engineering, if your storage patterns are bad, it's like building an adapter with the wires totally crossed. You're going to leak gas, and eventually the whole thing's going to short circuit. Take a look at these two distinct slots. First, you've got your default royalty slot. This is just a single struct holding the receiver and the basis points, and it covers the vast majority of your tokens. It saves massive amounts of gas because you aren't reading per token data on every single query. Then you have the token royalty mapping. This is strictly there for optional overrides on specific token IDs. It's an incredibly optimized, gas-efficient way to build this blueprint.
Section 3, Access Control and Security.
Now, this should go without saying, but you absolutely have to lock down your setter functions. Use ownable or role-based wrappers so only authorized managers can trigger them. Why? Well, imagine leaving the front door to your contract wide open, letting any random user on the internet call it, and allowing them to set their own royalty rate to 100% for your entire collection. Yeah, no thanks. That is a very quick recipe for absolute chaos and drained funds. Always, always protect your setters with modifiers like owner-owner or specific role-based access controls.
All right, Section 4, Wiring the Royalty Info Function.
This right here is where the rubber actually meets the road. Check out how straightforward the execution path is across these 4 steps. First, read your storage into memory. You want to avoid those super expensive repeated storage loads. Second, check for an empty receiver. If that per token mapping returns a 0 address, you just gracefully fall back to your default royalty. Third, compute the math, using simple multiplication and division. And fourth, just return the tuple with the address and the calculated amount. Keep this function view-only, keep it deterministic, and above all, keep it highly gas-efficient.
Okay, see this massive number? 10,000? Pay very close attention here. When you reach step 3 and actually calculate the royalty amount, the formula is the sale price multiplied by the basis points, divided by 10,000. Here is the absolutely crucial part. You must explicitly cast your basis points variable to a uint256 before you multiply it by the sale price. If you forget to cast it, you are risking catastrophic truncation or overflow errors. And remember the golden rule of Solidity math. Always multiply first, then divide by 10,000.
Oh, and whatever you do, do not forget the supports interface check. It's such a ridiculously common mistake. Developers will build this perfect royalty info function and then totally forget to advertise that it even exists. The supports interface check acts exactly like a manufacturing label on our adapter. When a marketplace queries your contract, they look at this label first to verify, yes, this contract is perfectly EIP-2981 compatible. All you have to do is override the function and return true for the EIP-2981 interface ID. It's that simple.
Finally, Section 5, Testing the Checkpoints.
Look, you'd never plug a brand new homemade electrical adapter directly into the wall without testing it first to make sure it doesn't blow up your house, right? Same logic applies here. Here's your essential checkpoint list. 1. Compile your contract with 0 errors. 2. Test the happy path for the default royalty query. 3. Test the path for the per-token override query to make absolutely sure your fallback logic is prioritizing things correctly. And finally, test the negative path. Write a test where you act as a malicious user trying to change the royalty rates and explicitly expect that transaction to revert. Prove that your access controls are working exactly as intended.
Let's look at what those tests should actually output. On the top row, we have token ID 7 selling for $250,000. It's using the default 500 basis points, which is 5%, so we get an expected payout of exactly $12,500, going directly to receiver 1. Perfect. Now look at the bottom row. Token ID 42 sells for a cool $1 million, but this one hits our mapping for an override of 1,000 basis points, which is 10%. That results in a super clean $100,000 payout to receiver 2. This proves, without a doubt, that our adapter perfectly translates raw sale prices into exact, precise payouts.
So now that you've successfully built this universal adapter, I want you to consider this. What actually happens when marketplaces start honoring, or honestly actively ignoring, these standardized signals in the middle of a brutal bear market? We always say code is law, but the enforcement of these royalties, that's entirely social. We're going to explore that exact tension in our next explainer, Testing and Verifying Royalty Distribution, where we put all of this to work in simulated, end-to-end marketplace payouts. To dive into that next module, and to master a ton of other advanced Web3 engineering topics, make sure you head over to our website at forge.college. It is packed with in-depth courses designed to completely level up your decentralized development skills. Thanks so much for joining me today, and happy coding.